You say no once, calmly, clearly, not angry, not dramatic, just no. Then they come back softer, not with force, with tone. Come on, just this once. It's not a big deal. I'm only asking. And that is the moment most people miss. Because the pressure does not arrive looking aggressive. It arrives looking easy. So you start talking again. You explain what you meant. You soften the edge. You try to make your no sound fair. Now the air changes. The first answer was a decision. The second one becomes a discussion. And you can feel it happening in real time. That small pull in your chest. That urge to keep the exchange smooth. That need to not sound cold, stubborn, difficult. A second ago, you had a boundary. Now you are managing their reaction to it. And the worst part is, it still feels harmless. It still feels like you are just being decent, just clarifying, just helping them understand. But that is not what is happening. What changed was not your answer. What changed was the access after it. This is where it changes. The second ask is the real test. The first no is easy to say because the moment is still clean. You are only answering the request. The second ask is different. Now you are answering the pressure around the request. They pause. They come back lighter, maybe even smiling, maybe acting like they are making it easier for you. And suddenly your no longer feels final. It feels like the start of a negotiation you did not agree to have. That is why people lose the boundary here. Not because they meant yes, not because the first answer was weak, but because the second ask turns the moment social. Now there is tone to manage, comfort to manage, their disappointment to manage, your image to manage. So you speak again. And the second you do, your no starts to move. Because final answers do not need support. They hold without being carried. The moment you begin carrying yours, the other person feels that. When you explain again, they do not hear stronger clarity. They hear openness. That is the part people misunderstand. You think you are reinforcing your boundary. They hear that your boundary can still be worked on, because explanation sounds like engagement, and engagement sounds like possibility. You say, "It's just bad timing. I really can't. I have a lot going on. Maybe later. I just need you to understand." But what lands is not the reason. What lands is this. You are still here, still available, still participating in the reopening. And once that happens, the no loses weight. Now it feels less like a decision and more like a problem both of you can solve together. Maybe they answer your reason. Maybe they shrink the ask. Maybe they reframe it as something smaller, quicker, easier, kinder. And now you are not protecting the boundary. You are defending it inside their frame. What they hear is not your reason. It is your availability. So why do you keep talking? Usually for one reason. You can feel the tension. The second ask creates a tiny emotional pressure most people hate. There is that half second where silence would end it. And instead of letting that silence stand, you rush in to soften it. Because you do not want to look rude. You do not want to seem rigid, ungenerous, hard to deal with. You want the no to be respected, but you also want the moment to stay warm. That is the trap. You are trying to keep finality and comfort at the same time. And in most real interactions, you usually do not get both. So your body starts helping the wrong side. You smile when you do not mean to. You add extra words. You lower your tone. You give context that was never required. You are not changing the answer. You are trying to lower the social cost of the answer. But when you lower that cost too much, the other person stops feeling the boundary at all. They feel your discomfort with holding it. And once someone feels that, they stop testing the request. They start testing you. Under that pressure is a deeper belief. A lot of people think a good no should be easy for the other person to receive. That if you say it kindly enough, reasonably enough, gently enough, they will accept it without friction. So when the second ask comes, you think the problem is understanding. You assume they need more context, a softer tone, a better explanation, a more generous version of the same answer. But many times, the issue is not confusion. It is resistance. They were not testing your reason. They were testing whether discomfort could buy access. And this is where self-respect gets exposed. Because now you are no longer protecting the decision. You are trying to earn permission to keep the decision. That is a completely different position. A good no is not a no that sounds pleasant. It is not a no that leaves everyone comfortable. It is not a no that proves you are still kind while refusing. A good no is one that survives contact. One that survives disappointment. One that survives a softer second attempt. One that survives the urge to explain yourself into being accepted again. Most people are not afraid of saying no once. They are afraid of being read differently after they say it. Afraid of looking selfish, cold, inflexible, less liked. So they turn the no into a performance of reasonableness. And that performance quietly tells the other person, if you keep this gentle enough, I may reopen. That is not boundary work. That is image management. And after this happens a few times, a pattern forms. Not in your head. In other people's behavior. They stop taking your first no as final. They treat it like the first draft, the opener, the surface answer, the thing to push past. So next time the second ask comes faster, then cleaner, then with more confidence. I know you said no, but just hear me out. Only this once. It'll take 2 minutes. Don't make it a big thing. Notice what is happening. They are no longer wondering whether to push. They are assuming persistence works on you because you trained that. Every time you reopened the moment, every time you explained after the decision, every time you tried to make your refusal easier to digest, you taught them something. You taught them your no weakens under emotional pressure. This is the peak of the pattern. Your boundary is still verbal, but socially, it is no longer real. People become relaxed around pushing you. They stop reading your words as closed. They read them as the beginning of a softer round, and the damage is bigger than one request. Now your position changes. You become the person whose limits are negotiable if approached lightly enough. The person who can be worn down politely. The person who says no first, but maybe later. The person who needs a second ask to reveal the real answer. If this hits home, subscribe. We're building a place for calm people who are tired of being pushed past their own limits. Because this does not stay in one interaction. It becomes your social texture. And once that texture forms, people feel it fast. Before correction. And this is where most people lose the boundary completely. Not when they say yes. When they keep treating repeated pressure like harmless conversation. The correction is smaller than people think. You do not need a speech. You do not need a harsher personality. You do not need to become cold. You need one shift. Stop supporting the no. Say it once. If they ask again, do not upgrade the explanation. Do not add new reasons. Do not help them feel better about what was closed. You can repeat the boundary without reopening the discussion. No, that won't work for me. I'm not available for that. I said no. Then stop. Let the silence do the work your extra words used to do. That silence will feel sharp at first. You will feel the old urge to jump in and smooth it. Do not. That discomfort is not failure. That discomfort is the boundary becoming visible. When you stop expanding, the moment stops having somewhere to go. Now the other person has to meet the answer instead of walking around it. This is how finality returns. Not through intensity, through stillness, through not converting your decision into shared processing. A real no does not chase understanding after it lands. It stays where it is. The hard truth is simple. A no that needs support is not a no. It is a negotiation wearing the clothes of a boundary. The second ask does not expose whether you were clear. It exposes whether your answer can survive pressure without turning conversational. That is the real measure. Not what you say first. What you refuse to reopen after. Your first no set the limit, but your second explanation taught them the limit could move.